The Oklahoma Sooners survived their bout against West Virginia, a game we need to talk about because Oklahoma's defense is holding up their end of the bargain, holding West Virginia to less than 250 total yards. But things aren't clicking for Oklahoma's offense, and we need to get into it. Before we do, as always, y'all know the drill. I want to hear from you. Hop down to the comments. Give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Are you surprised at the offensive struggles for the Sooners thus far in 2021? Let me know what you're thinking there. And if you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed this content, be sure to like and comment down below because those interactions are massive to content creators such as myself. And first and foremost, let's hop straight into this. Oklahoma's defense has really held up their end of the deal this portion of the 2021 season. Yesterday alone, they held West Virginia to under 250 yards. If we look at Daigie's stats at the end of the game, he had less than 170 yards passing, averaging less than 6 yards per attempt. Rushing the football, West Virginia didn't even hit 50 total yards rushing. So the defense for Oklahoma is a unit that is improved from years past. Alex Grinch has got a lot of dudes on that defense that are playing some hard-nosed football, and that improvement is something I believe we can continue seeing as the weeks progress. Now, is this defense a top 5 defense? No, but they don't have to be, right? And that's something that as college football has changed, you don't have to have a top 3 defense to win it all. You need a defense that will bend but not break and an opportunistic defense, and Oklahoma looks to have both of those, especially with the vaunted pass rush they have now, especially if they get Redmond back. He and Benito have been sensational as a duo, so the Oklahoma defense has held up their end of the deal. However, the surprise I think myself and many people have is how many struggles Oklahoma's offense have had up to this portion of the 2021 season. When you look at this offense, it is a very talented unit from the wide receivers to the quarterback, and even though you have lost a lot in that running back room, both your scholarship running backs are really talented dudes, but things aren't clicking. And I know yesterday a lot of people are after Rattler, but I have to be very honest. Rattler was not the issue yesterday. I understand he threw an interception, but if you look at the interception he threw, we can talk about should the ball have been thrown or not. Maybe, maybe not, but there was a window when he threw it. I just don't think he thought that that DB could make the play on the ball that he did, and in fairness, that DB made a really good play. There was a window when Rattler threw the ball. The DB just made a super solid play. So I'm not really mad at that interception. That is the type of interception that a window presented itself. A small window, but a window, and the DB just made a phenomenal play on the ball. That's as simple as that was to me. Rattler was not the issue yesterday, and that's why it was really, really hard to hear the fans booing and saying, we want Caleb. Because to me, when we look at the Oklahoma offense right now, their offensive line is doing them no favors whatsoever. And through 4 games, this is a unit that has allowed 20 tackles for loss and 7 sacks. It's going to be very hard to get your offense going with any sort of consistency when you're giving up tackles for loss in the manner you are. If we look at this game specifically, West Virginia got 4 sacks, 6 tackles for loss. It's going to be very hard to get anything going under that much duress. It's even going to be more difficult to get anything going as a quarterback when you're under that much duress and your running game is averaging 2 yards a pop. Eric Gray couldn't get anything going. Kennedy Brooks couldn't get anything going, and that's indicative of the offensive line struggles. But the reason why I say this isn't on Spencer, and I am someone who's been critical at times of Spencer's decision-making, but I've remained adamant that I believe he is the man for the job. I believe that he will be just fine, and I don't feel any different outside of this game. It's very hard for your quarterback to be put in a position of success when the defense knows there's no threat of a running game. When there's no threat of a running game, the defense is just going to key in on the pass. And Oklahoma was put into a position yesterday where they had to pass because they had no sort of running game working. And at the point where the defense knows that's coming, it gets all the easier to stop it. Not mentioning what the defense knows is coming, you're putting yourself in a precarious position in the time of possession battle. Because in order to sustain drives, usually one relies on the running game. The running game really helps you keep your defense off the field, let them get a breather, and allow your offense to stay on the field, wearing down the opposing defense. When you don't have that and you're putting it all on your quarterback, you're much more likely for your defense to see the field more and the opposing offense to control the time of possession battle, and that's exactly what we saw out of West Virginia yesterday. West Virginia won the time of possession battle. It's very hard to sustain drives when you do not have a consistent running game. And I've talked about this with other teams, that the lack of a running game can create a ton of problems in having a cohesive offense because it makes it so much harder to get where you want to go in sustaining drives. And we saw that yesterday. Yesterday, in my opinion, was much less about Spencer Rattler and much more about the offensive line and running game failing to establish any sort of consistency. Ultimately, I always try and look for the positive, something for us to take forward. And at the end of the game, when it was most impactful, Spencer Rattler and the offense drove down the field and ended up getting a game-winning field goal. And if we look at Oklahoma's defense, I talk about Oklahoma not being able to establish a running game. Oklahoma's defensive front is stout. They held West Virginia's rushing attack to 1.6 yards per carry average. So Oklahoma's defense is a defense that has been playing really good football, and I'm excited to see how they continue progress throughout the year. I think the only thing I can say for the offensive line and looking for some sort of positivity yesterday is that there has been inconsistency at who is starting at center, whether it's Rame or Congle, and hopefully one of those guys will take the job fully and you will get some reps, some consistency there, and hopefully that can help. But at the end of the day, the offensive line for Oklahoma is one that has to get sorted out. Luckily, you do have Bill Bedenbaugh. We've talked about that in the past, but the story for me is much less about Spencer Rattler and much more about having a running game that wasn't able to get anything going and an offensive line that wasn't helping your quarterback out any. Oklahoma was put in a position where they made Spencer Rattler try and go win that game, and he didn't have a whole lot of help from the offensive line, and as a quarterback, it's very hard to get anything going when you don't have that portion. It's going to be very interesting to see how Oklahoma moves forward, because this is something we have to watch. Oklahoma is very talented, but it's going to be very interesting to see how they deal with the coming games and how they evolve on the offensive side of the ball and how they continue to progress. Hop down to the comments, let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.